Early Sunday morning, the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Florida, was the site of the worst mass shooting and the worst act of homophobic terrorism in U.S. history. We're going to break down all the facts for you. Nearly 50 people were killed, more than 50 were wounded during a siege that lasted more than 3 hours. The gunman, who was later killed by police, entered the club with an assault-type rifle, a handgun, and a device after engaging in a shootout with officers working off-duty outside of Pulse, the gay nightclub. He began shooting at 2 a.m. and his siege of the nightclub lasted for 3 hours until police were able to enter, during a period in which dozens of individuals were trapped inside of the club, hoping to be rescued as the siege went on. At around 6 a.m. Eastern, it was reported that the gunman was dead. Later, police confirmed that the shooter was killed by SWAT. Police officials said they made the decision to go inside and engage the gunman because they were being contacted by people who were hiding in the bathroom and were wounded. They rescued 30 people who were inside the club with the gunman. As we said earlier, nearly 50 dead, 50 including the gunman. Officials had said that the dead numbered 50, but clarified that later that they were including the gunman in that number. And around midday today, Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi said that the families of at least 36 out of 49 victims had been notified of their loved ones' deaths. And one of the, I think, personally most horrific parts of this that I saw was a text message conversation between one of the people who was trapped and their mother. And that person ended up dying. And so absolutely horrendous that they only got to send a couple of messages before they were finally killed. And now during the siege, the shooter did communicate with police on the outside. He also called 911 to pledge allegiance to ISIS during the attack and was possibly planning to carry out the massacre at the Orlando Gay Club for a long time. He had attempted to buy military-grade body armor from a local store in recent weeks, according to a U.S. official. Thankfully, police at the store refused to sell him what is known as Level 3 body armor, which offers more protection than the body armor police typically issue to officers. He'd also legally purchased a Glock pistol and a long gun, which has been only identified as AR-15 styled. And finally, FBI Director James Comey said today that there is no evidence that the shooter's plot was directed from outside the U.S., with President Obama calling him an example of the kind of homegrown extremism that all of us have been so concerned about. So obviously a very devastating attack following the day after the death of singer Christina Grimmie. An absolutely horrendous, but not too atypical weekend in American recent history. Yeah,
I mean, the story is the most brutal, case of a mass shooting in U.S. history, the most number of victims in a mass shooting in U.S. history. And every year, it seems like, there's a new mass shooting that takes that title. And it's scary because with this story, you see a similar trend. You have, our polarized political situation where people like to stick to their talking points, go to their corners, and just continue regurgitating those talking points. And we don't seem to really learn from what we've experienced in the past. There are never any real solutions. There's only questionable vitriol, questionable rhetoric, and it's very understandable to feel helpless in this moment. I know I feel helpless.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, comparing them, you compare them by number, you compare them by when they happen, and how frequently they happen. I mean, Newtown. Remember, we all thought that was going to be the one that got us past the inaction and inertia on this issue. It was kids. It was little kids. It was just brutal and nothing. And then we just get inured to it, and it keeps happening and happening. And here we are in Orlando, right? What do we think of when we think of Orlando, right? We think of Disney and happiest place on earth. And it's a terrible thing. But what is so terrible is what you just pointed out, is that nobody does anything ever, and you have to rely on Congress, and you have to look and say, how in the world? Yesterday, Igor Volsky was, who everybody should follow, at Igor Volsky, IGORVOLSKY, was taking every tweet that a congressman was tweeting, a member of Congress was tweeting, and they were saying, our thoughts and prayers are with you, which of course is a nice thing to say. It's sort of the reflex thing you say. Volsky was retweeting that tweet and saying how much each of these people had taken from the National Rifle Association in donations to keep them silent on the issues of preventing handguns, preventing assault weapons, preventing this. And until that happens, it's not going to change. Until, it goes back to what everybody talks about all the time at this desk, which is money and politics. And until the influence of the National Rifle Association is minimized, this is going to continue to happen.
This is part of that fairy dust that people talk about when they talk about Bernie Sanders, fairy dust and all that stuff.
That didn't take long.
And unicorns, because this is exactly this is that. I mean, you just kind of said it. I'm just kind of reiterating what you're saying is that, the money in politics, we have a government that's responsive to donors and not to voters.
Yeah.
And when we say we have to get the NRA money out, we have to get money out of our politics, right? And so, that's not just some high-minded idea that we all wish we could have someday, right? That's a thing we absolutely need, because if you don't get money out of politics, people die, right? And this is what's happening, right? We have kids, we had 20 kids, children, shot, massacred. Now we have 50 adults massacred. So it doesn't seem to matter how horrible this is, because when money's in politics, that's what's going to win the day. We shouldn't be marginalizing that idea or pretending like we can take money and it doesn't affect us.
Yeah.
And we need to stop doing that. We need to stop allowing our politicians to say that, to say, hey, I can take money and I can regulate and I can do. No, you can't. You can't do that. So when
obviously refuse to.
when they say that stuff, we need to hold their feet to the fire and just say that's patently not true. You cannot take money from special interests and then legislate without that in mind. So that's just stop saying that. Okay, we all know that money in politics is the thing that's corrupting politics. That's why that guy was able to go get an AR-15 style gun right now.
Legally.
It's why he was legally able to go purchase that body armor. While he was legal, so it's all completely legal. This is the system that money in politics has bought. Okay,
Yes.
So I'm just saying I think we all need to stop allowing politicians to say I can take money and I can still do my job, because you can't.
What were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say, luckily he wasn't able to purchase that body armor, which, by the way, as John had pointed out, would have been even more powerful than the body armor we give our police.
Yeah.
But another thing I wanted to mention is, yes, this absolutely has to do with, political corruption, and the main reason why these mass shootings happen in this country over and over again, and they get worse every time, and nothing ever gets done in the form of, ensuring that there are background checks and ensuring that there's common sense gun legislation that could prevent something like this from happening in the future. He had been investigated by the FBI on 2 separate occasions, and he was still able to legally purchase these firearms. But another thing that I want to mention is this shooting touches on so many ills in our, social ills in the country, right? Not only does it have to do with political corruption, it also has to do with gay intolerance, bigotry, right? Which you see quite a bit, especially with all the stories we've been covering recently with the transgender bathroom laws, right? So a lot of conservatives are coming out and they're saying, look, we need to point to radical Islamic terrorism, right? Which, by the way, I think that it's fine to talk about homegrown terrorism, because that's exactly what happened with this US-born citizen who was radicalized and did what he did. But you also have to talk about the type of gay intolerance that you see among many conservatives in the United States, whether, they follow Islam or any other religion. That type of rhetoric needs to change. That type of ideology needs to change. You can't be a conservative and mourn the deaths of these individuals when you've been spouting hate toward these groups of people for decades at this point.
Yeah. I want to turn in a second to President Obama's comments, a brief part of his comments on this. I just wanted to respond to something Michael said about the thoughts and prayers, which we obviously see. And I engage in all the sorts of the same useless Twitter comments that you always have. The thoughts and prayers seems like a nice thing to do, but it's not a nice thing to do if what you're doing is falsely implying that that's the best you can do. Regular people send thoughts and prayers because that is literally the best that they can do, is lend moral support to people who are suffering. But if you're a politician, that's a lie. It's not the best you can do. You could change the situation. You're choosing not to. Now let's go to video 5, where you're going to see Barack Obama talking about some of the false narratives that have been popping up as a result of this shooting.
My concern is that we start getting into a debate, as has happened in the past, which is an either-or debate. And the suggestion is either we think about something as terrorism and we ignore the problems with easy access to firearms, or it's all about firearms and we ignore the very real role that organizations like ISIL had in generating extremist views inside this country. And it's not an either or, it's a both and.
And of course, he lent support to the victims and their families, as you would expect. And we're going to talk a little bit more later on in the show about what can possibly be done legislatively as a result of this. But I do want to give you a brief idea of something that you can do. We're going to talk at the close of the show with blood donations, which is, of course, something that is necessary, especially considering some of the discrimination that we still have in our system as a result of that. But a GoFundMe campaign has been set up for the victims and their families. And so if we could bring up graphic 29, you're going to see an image of that. That's something that you can easily find. Obviously, it's already raising a great deal of money. That is something that you can do to help support them. It's at gofundme.com/pulsevictimsfund. That is one way that you could help out some of those who are still suffering, still waiting for information about what actually happened.